Hey everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's on the Two, where it's our show where we talk about things in the world of television, which normally includes reviews of episode by episode, review bases on shows that are currently on the air, season by season review for shows that have long wrapped up or still on the air but for a very long time, or doing these quick impressions where normally I would binge a show, whether it is an old show from my past or a brand new show for the very first time, and I talk about it for a while. This time, we're doing Ballers, and I try to do sunglasses because I guess that's all the rage in the world of football, in the Rocks world. And look, I'm just gonna jump right into it. Ballers is a very intriguing show for me, where it finally felt like, for me. So here's the thing: when people, because I have watched a ton of TV show. I don't even know why I put on my glasses. I normally don't do for this show. When I normally watch a TV show live on a live basis, I normally don't notice or comment about a season to season decline or an increasement of quality, unless we're really removed from the situation. But in the case of Ballers, because I binged all 5 seasons within a span of 2 weeks, and I honestly went into Ballers similar to The Boys, because so right now I'm doing this new curated watch list of shows that I want to watch, and Ballers was on the list too, and I got to it after I finished The Boys. I initially thought that, again, Ballers was never something that was overhyped for me. It never was something that I heard about as often. I've heard of the show because I am a big fan of The Rock. I know I follow him on Instagram when the show was airing, so I would always see the post about how Ballers was doing pretty well. I was kept coming back for more, and then it ended by season 5. And I never really did too much into it. It was just mainly I just didn't know what the heck was going on. It's one of those, I read the description, I read the text bubble, and then afterwards I just imagine what the show's going to be about. I know it has to do with the world of football and financial management. I know that, and it was an HBO show, so it has a certain quality to it, similar to Game of Thrones or Westworld. Like, you're expecting a certain quality of both, well, just the quality of the show in terms of writing, production value, that sort of thing with HBO that you don't really get that much in other shows. And the very unique thing for me was that the first thing I noticed when I queued up episode 1 on HBO Max was the runtime, where it was about 30 minutes at best, which I'm like, Jesus, I was expecting 45-minute episodes when I was going into it. I was like, damn, was that short? I was like, okay, maybe this will be much more easier cakewalk than I imagined. And I kid you not, I binged the first season in the first night I watched it. I began watching it around 10 p.m. at night. I went to bed at 2:30, and I already finished the first season. I was already beginning some portions in season 2. So I was really thrilled with the show. And I think it's the cliche marketing of sex sells, or it's this very amusing comedy for me, where I was a big, like, for me, I've always had a bit of an interest in finance, in the world of finance. I'm not anywhere in the financial world. That's not me at all. I have an interest in it, but it's not something I can build a career out of. But I do like hearing about it, talking about it on an occasion. It is something that intrigues me. So, and also, I love The Rock, so I was like, okay, I'll give this show a decent shot when it was selected on my wheel. And so going into that, I went into it thinking it was probably just going to be some nonsensical logic and just, good funny scenes at times. But I got a little bit more than that. I really did. I want to say, because again, this is quick impressions. I'm not going deep into spoilers or any spoilers. And also, if you have not watched Ballers, don't worry, you won't get any spoilers from here. But me going into the show, I didn't know what I was expecting, because my expectations were it's a rock show. So similar to Young Rock, which I also watch. I never covered because it's a comedy. It's like a full sitcom comedy, so there's no point for me to cover it. I went into that and thinking, you know what? Let's see how it goes, and I enjoyed my ride with it. It's the same thing with Ballers. I enjoyed my time with it. It's similar to most of the Rock's films, where they're just fun popcorn action flicks. This is the case of it. It's just good TV, where it's not the best, it is not the greatest at times. I enjoyed my time of it, but I will admit that to go back to the whole quality declining mode, I did notice the quality of the show decline as you get from season 1 all the way to season 5. I think at the end of the line, the baseline, it's still a good show. It just For me, and this is kind of like it's a nitpick, it's a mild thing. It falls under for me my traditional I say the Riverdale curse, where the show is the strongest when you have all your core characters together, and it starts to fall apart a little bit more once you get into starting to split them up, because I honestly think, yeah, this show was definitely mainly a rock piece. It definitely was. Also, I gotta give a shout out the fact they named one of the characters Joe. One of the main characters is called Joe, and he works with the Rock. I'm like, I love it. It's beautiful. It'll never happen to me, but I'm very happy that Joe's got some relation to the Rock. I'm happy, but what I was binging for the first season, I loved it a lot. I think, like I was saying, sex sells. They put a lot of sex scenes in the first few seasons. They really did, and I guess it's something I grew up with as just something I was watching growing up. It just entices me a little bit. So I'm not trying to say it made an effect on the later seasons in terms of me not liking it as much, but definitely they were changing the show into something that it wasn't. Where I think maybe people make the joke, like when certain actors become so big, they just become whatever character they're playing on a movie or a TV show. They're just known as that character, or it's just the Rock. Or like in this is it's the Rock playing himself. It's not Spencer Strasburg. It's just the Rock. Which honestly, in this show in particular, the fine line is kind of, it's not really the best, especially in the later seasons, because again, The Rock is an entrepreneur now. He does have his own business lines with Project Rock as a workout brand, Zola, Terramana. So it's like, yeah, like it could either be the character Spencer influenced The Rock, or it could be The Rock influenced. I really don't know. Like timeline wise, I don't really know what the real life influences were for him to start those business ventures. They were successful. I'm pointing the dots here. I'm pointing the dot. It's a vice versa. It could just be one side or another. Who really knows? But so for me, getting into the show, really, I really liked the characters. I really did. They were all funny. They were all engaging. And I always love it when I want to be in the show because I want to do something in that show, just because that's what I'm feeling right now. Like there's a moment where I wanted to really slap a character because he was being stupid as hell. And I'm like, absolutely, I would definitely deck this guy if I was there, and that's a good sign for a show to have, where like I want to be in that world. And I even got to the point where like I got so enthralled, like I actually saved the clip from it like on my phone, like a very shitty quality, just to show my friends, and it's like it is so freaking good at the start. It really was. But the show mainly focuses on it's the role of football mixed in with financial management, where an ex-football player in the Rock's character Spencer Strasmore, he becomes a financial advisor, a financial manager. And one of the primary reasons he was hired was because he has so much connections in the world of football and into sports. So they just the people who hired him just assumed that, you know, he's got all these connections. Maybe he can bring in some really good clientele. The person who hired him, Joe, who would end up being his partner in, well, an unofficial partner, like a partnership between them later on in the show. He hired him mainly for that reason. And then, you know, eventually it's mostly like, you know, it's also like the real life thing, like, what do football players do after they're done? Because sometimes you just don't make enough money, and they really hone that in very well. I'm sorry if I'm jumping over the place, but they really honed in that aspect well. It's like, there are some football players that just make a lot of money, that they're just set for life, and they reasonably spend and they reasonably invest to make some sort of new avenue of profit. And then some of them who just really blow their load. Like they really do. They just blow all the money they make because they just assume like, oh, millions of dollars is a lot, but then they spend it on something stupid, and then by the time they retire, they're just, what do I do? What do I do? And it does it does open up some avenues of the issues within the actual football industry, which I am not a sports guy. I really am not. One of my best friends in the world, Sal Vassallo, he hosts the Sports in the Big Apples podcast. Go check that out on Spotify. He knows a lot about sports, so I think he would be the perfect person to ask him questions if I was to do like a let's say a season by season Ballers review or something. But I probably won't, because, you know, it's just times are busy. But so for me, like that's what I that's one of the things I did generally like about the later seasons, is that they use that as a platform to actually diversify and like really bring into some light into some issues in that industry, and also just to like be new, because like again, like for me, like whenever you go into a 4 seasons of a show, I do get like you can't really repeat what you've been doing the first 3 seasons, because eventually it does get old. But sometimes you have the adverse risk of like, it's too different from how you started, that you alienated the fans. Where I am not surprised if someone jumped off after season 3, because season 4 was just it felt too different. Where there was a location ship, there was a lot of changes. There was the Riverdale like mentality of a split. So it's like for me, like I felt so discomfort by that because I was so used to seeing most of the main characters together a lot of the time, and then you would be lucky to get a scene of them maybe in like in a couple of episodes. And these seasons are short; they're like 10, 9 or 8 episodes, so they're not incredibly long. Like I'm not saying like it's a big 23 episode season where like it is noticeable when you don't see these characters interact for so long. But it is that factor of yeah, you do notice that like you don't get to see them, and it could just because again the Rock's busy nature of his scheduling for filming these movies, it probably made an impact on the schedule. Like okay, we can't. It's the same thing like when you do a big feature movie like a Marvel movie where it's like you have so many moving pieces, you have so many actors on board that sometimes you can't get all the actors to be in the same scene at the same time, but you have majority, so you got to put in a stand-in or maybe just create a scenario where it's like okay, these characters just won't interact because the schedule doesn't allow it. Like I remember Doctor Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch was filming scenes for other movies throughout Infinity War, throughout Endgame, and even No Way Home. Ironically, No Way Home was because of Multiverse of Madness, where he just could not be on set the entire run. He just couldn't be. He's just a very busy actor. He's involved in many different projects, so they have to use a stand-in in that instant. But then there's other cases where, okay, the actor's not there. We're just gonna do completely different scenes to accommodate it. But that could be the case for the Rocks for this show in particular, for the Rocks role where. You notice that in season 4, a very harsh, noticeable scene in season 5, and I don't really like it that much. I really don't. If you like, Ballers is not the Rock show. It is not, and I apologize because every time I say the Rock, like every time the Rock's in something, it's like bold picture. It is a Rock production. Where Black Adam, it is a Rock movie. Young Rock is the Rock show. Like Ballers was yes, the main cover icon was Dwayne Johnson. He was the main star. But they pitch it as an ensemble piece where like you get different avenues. Like Spencer is the retired one. Then you have another character who is retired too, but he does want to play around with going back into that world. And then you have a couple of ongoing players that are also involved and they're just friends with them and they just keep going and they're all involved and they all provide advices at different avenues of their life and it gives them different perspective. But then once you start to divide them because like they're not together anymore, like it's the same thing as like you assume that these characters could do their own thing. Like let's say Baller's got a spinoff and it just doesn't have the Rock or Joe. Let's say they're not there anymore. Like for me, like unless it's a really good script, it's really good episodes, I will not care. I will not give a damn because not to say the characters can't like that are not Spencer or Joe can't sustain their own storyline. Is just for me it's like I've always liked it best when you got the interactions between it because that's what you got set up to do. And I know there's plenty of shows that have done that where like you have the interaction but then they have their solo pieces. Like I'm not saying it's impossible, it's just for me the show never gave me those levels of I want to see the characters on their own. It never gave me that impression of that was what I wanted to see. You pitched me as this, you kept it going as that. I wanted to see that go through, and it didn't. And so to speak, yeah, it's like, the later seasons do definitely feel like, a different show, a different platform, a different avenue to talk about. And that's not a problem per se. It just wasn't what, enticed me to see Ballers in the first place. It just wasn't. I think they ended okay. I don't think it was a very strong ending in my opinion. It has one of those, you leave the door open for more, but if this was the end, this was the end. You really can't really deny anymore. Like, it's one of those, it's not like this big epic story where like once it's over, it's happy ever. No, these characters' journeys will continue in the show. You can speculate what happens next, what Spencer's gonna stupidly buy next and try to, fight his way out of, next. I mean, that's what you get. And when shows do that, I don't have a problem with that. They can do that. And, they definitely knew this was the season 5 was the end and they wrapped it up as best they could. And I was fine with it. Like it felt like an ending, but it felt like, you could continue if you want to. And, that's a perfectly fine, place to put your show in. Cause, it's just, you would have liked a couple more seasons to keep telling these stories. But at the same time, you know what? We end it here. So it's like, you never really know. You never really know what's going to happen next. I really do not see Ballers ever coming back, period. I think The Rock's just too busy with his schedule to come back. Unless they do another spin-off, like a Ballers, colon something, that would be interesting to see. I don't think you would do that. I don't think so. It's one of those, it's like you do the Young Rock, but Dwayne Johnson's just not there anymore for the present day, the future day stuff. That's kind of what I mean. Like, you just... It doesn't make sense on paper when you think about it. Let's just say that. But But for me, I really enjoyed my time with Ballers. I really did. Any shout outs to mention? Oh yeah, I forgot to mention John David Washington. I've heard of this actor for so long, and he was on this, and he's one of the stars on this show, and he does a really good job. He really does. I know he was in the movie Tenet, and I had a little bit of miscommunication. It could have just been like a misreading of a post. I initially thought. Actually, no, wait, that counts as a spoiler. But he's in the whole run. I initially thought he left early on in season 5 because of Tenet. But I guess I was wrong on that information, or I don't know. I don't know. But just something happened. But in terms of Ballers, I think at the end of the day, if you're just looking for a very fun show to binge for like a few weeks, this is a perfectly fine show for you. It will definitely open your mind a little bit more to the world of finance. It will definitely open your world to a little bit more of the world of football, behind the scenes wise. It's a very intriguing behind the scenes piece, I'll say that, even though it's not trying to be. It's just, for me, I viewed it as you're going behind the scenes of something that I've always been curious about. I really am. I'm not into finance, I'm not into football, but I'm always intrigued with how it's happening behind the scenes, that sort of thing. Similar to how Heels, that I reviewed last week to week. I didn't really give a damn about wrestling. I would be intrigued by it if I watched it, but I have no inclination to actually get into wrestling as a hobby. But getting into that, just seeing the inner workings behind it, that's what intrigued me is the worst, and that's what I will give Ballers credit for doing that for me for football and financial management. So yeah. Again, shout out to Joe. I love them so much. I still hope I don't bald. I'm not bald. I'm not getting bald. Like, I refuse to get bald. But he does a good job. He really does. Anything else to mention that isn't spoiler related? No, not really. I was vaguely surprised about the amount of sex I saw in this show. I'll just say that's all I can really say. And seeing The Rock's ass was, I have no comment. But overall for me, Ball, it's a fun ride. It's a fun experience. You're gonna have a blast with it. Expect a little bit of a quality decline as you get into the later season, but baseline, it's good. It is good at the end of the day. It's just it's a good show. That's it. It's worth the binge. Let's just say that. So you can check out all the episodes of Ballers right now on HBO Max. Go check it out there. But if you care about Ballers, hopefully maybe like any quick impressions we do, maybe we'll do a full run down the line. Who knows? The door is open for anything. But again, if you like me talking about shows, yeah, go check us out on ActionX's What's on the Tube, where I review a lot of other stuff on a weekly occasion. So go check them out, please. It helps us a lot. So again, there you go. So once again, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you have not to youtube.com/ActionX videos. Ring that bell for notification when our next review is live, which is normally 3 times a week. Please also like, favorite, share this review if you want to. Oh yeah, please let me know in the comments below what you think of Ballers. What was your thoughts on it? And yeah, what stupid stuff do you like from the show that's spoiler related? Because I talked about Ballers with some of my friends, and they're intrigued by it, but none of them watch it. So I'm all left alone as always. It's very hard for me to find people to talk to about. But I'm just saying for the last time, I do not regret the hours I missed of sleep for Ballers. I do not regret it at all. The Rock can do no wrong in terms of just delivering something as good as this. I'm jammering as long as I usually am. Please also ring that bell for notification when our next review is live. Please also follow us on social media to stay up to date with any sort of updates we may have for the channel. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching again. Please support us if you can. And until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.